Welcome to this episode of Evidence of Greatness. For this month, we're going to be looking at an article that is called Cultivating an Understanding of Curiosity as a Seed for Creativity. And this is a little bit of an unusual exploration for me, but curiosity is an idea that I've really kind of been thinking about a lot lately, because one of the things that we do as solution-focused therapists is we ask a lot of questions, and we say a lot of times we need to be curious. And I think we don't really delineate what that means much. And so I was hoping to get a little bit of clarity, and I'm going to be honest, this article brings out a lot, but it also opens a lot of questions that I'm not going to be able to give some answers to. But really, I'm throwing it out here as a way to hopefully get some conversation started, to begin to think about this a little bit. Because one of the things that we do as solution-focused therapists is we say we want to get as rich a detailed description as possible about somebody's desired outcome. And we do that by asking lots and lots and lots of questions. And one of the things that I think is really valuable is to think about the impact of our questions. And one of the possible impacts, or one of the possible implications, is that there is an intersection with curiosity and creativity, that hopefully will delineate a little bit as we go throughout this article. So this article was written by Gross, Zedelius, I guess is how you say that, and Schooler. So let me just get into this a little bit here. They define curiosity as the desire to know. Now think about that in the context of solution-focused work. Is what are we desiring to know? I think this really highlights clearly the importance of the desired outcome. If we want to know something, we need to be really careful about what it is that we're trying to understand, what we're trying to get to know. In our case, we want to know every detail we possibly can know about someone's desired outcome. Now, one of the things that they also do is they list a couple of things or characteristics of curiosity, and they say, curiosity is a powerful motivator for learning. If I am curious, I'm going to seek knowledge. I'm going to seek learning, purely for the ability to gain that knowledge. So there's an internal or an intrinsic motivation here, if I can key into curiosity. They also call curiosity a superpower, which I think has, again, implications for us as solution-focused practitioners, which is asking really good detailed questions, asking questions that kind of push beyond where the client has considered before. That really is a superpower. And so I think it is a superpower that we need to capture in the work that we do. And then the final thing that they mentioned was it's a seductive enabler of innovation. And you can see here where it's getting close to this idea of creativity, this idea of innovation. But again, I think about the way that we describe solution-focused brief therapy, and it is we're asking clients to co-create, co-construct a conversation. And as part of that conversation, it's very likely that they will say something that they've never said before, or say something in a way that they've never said it before. And so there is a piece of innovation here. And through our questions, through our curiosity, we are in some sense seducing them to innovate, seducing them to use language they've never used before. And so I do think curiosity is a really, really vital piece to the work that we do as solution-focused therapists. So then they talk a little bit about the connection or the relationship between curiosity and creativity. And this, I think, is really, really valuable. They phrase this in a way that I've never really thought before. So curiosity involves the pursuit of new knowledge or experiences. And they break down a couple of different kinds of curiosity. The first one that they talk about is epistemic, now I can't even say it, epistemic curiosity, which is the desire for knowledge. or perceptual curiosity, which is the desire for novel sensory experiences, tasting things I've never tasted before, listening to music I've never listened to before. And so I'm curious about what this new experience is, this new knowledge that I can get. And both of these were correlated with creative behaviors. So if people were desirous of new knowledge or desirous of novel sensory experiences, they did something different. They changed their behavior. It also was both of these were correlated with creative personality characteristics and creative performance. So curiosity and the research level, it showed a correlation of people who were curious, who kind of identified as curious. They also identified, or they behaved in a way that said they're also creative. Now, there's this really cool connection here, which is creativity involves transforming existing knowledge or ideas or objects into something novel and interesting. So you take all these raw materials and you put them together in a way that creates something new. So this idea of newness, this idea of experiencing something I haven't experienced before, overlaps between curiosity and creativity. And again, so if we put this into a solution-focused conversation realm, one of the things that does is we think about, like, as a clinician, approach this in a curious way. I'm seeking new knowledge. I'm seeking new understanding. We also can put the client in that same situation where they're coming and they're saying, I want to experience something I've never experienced before. And so they're seeking new knowledge or new experience. But we only have the language that we use. And so we're trying, in some sense, to transform that language or utilize that language to create new experience, to create something that's interesting, to create something in the way that we talk about it in solution-focused brief therapy is we're trying to create a new reality for them. So again, I think that if we talk about how does solution-focused brief therapy work, one of the mechanisms of change, I believe, is the curiosity of a clinician meeting the curiosity of a client and creating something novel and something interesting. So there's real implications for this on how therapy induces change. In addition, in this relationship between curiosity and creativity, one of the things that they talk a lot about is that curiosity is necessary, though it's not sufficient for the conditions for creativity. So creativity should include curiosity, or it will be a part of it, but that's not the only thing that contributes to creativity. Curious individuals tend to ask a lot of open-ended questions. So think about that. We tend to stay away from yes/no questions and instead say, what's the first thing you would notice? What is, who would so-and-so respond, and how would they let you know? And all of these things are open-ended questions, which requires this high level of creativity as far as the client is concerned. Curiosity impacts the generation stage of creativity. So what that means is right at the beginning, right? It's the new idea. It's the new conceptualization. It's the idea of, hey, I want to try this thing. And if curiosity influences this initial stage, then it makes a lot of sense why we as solution-focused therapists, we say, we don't know if the session we had was effective or useful until the client goes out into their normal everyday life and they live life. Because our curiosity impacted the generation stage of creativity, but not the execution of creativity, or not the playing out of those creative ideas or insights. And so they got to go live their life, but we are influencing their creativity, but we're doing it at the idea generation stage. And then finally, they talk about this idea of diversive curiosity, which is broad interest rather than specific interest, predicts creative problem solving. Now, I think this also has real implications for solution-focused brief therapy, because we tend to say we want to be really, really curious about something specific, about the desired outcome. And they're saying when you're really specific in that way, it doesn't help you to become a good problem solver. It's when you have this really diverse curiosity that you then start to become a really good problem solver. And I think that, again, backs up what we say is that we're not doing problem solving in solution-focused brief therapy, but instead we're changing creative thought. We're creating something new. We're creating something novel. We're not trying to solve a particular problem. And so again, I think this idea of curiosity and specific curiosity being something really valuable that helps us understand and explain what we're doing as solution-focused therapists. In addition, and then this final point is that all of this is about a desire to gain new knowledge and information. And that's what I would say we're doing in a solution-focused session. So curiosity, the next thing they do is they go on to curiosity as a psychological state. And I think there's something really valuable here too. One of the things that they talk about is that most of the literature that exists on curiosity describes curiosity as inherently a dynamic way. This trait, in essence, the way that they talk about this is that this trait rises and declines. So I'm more or less curious depending on which context I'm in. This is really similar to the way they describe hunger. I'm more hungry or less hungry, right? If it's been a long time since I've had something to eat, I get more hungry. If I smell something that I really, really love, perhaps that's going to increase my hunger level. So it's a state. I am either hungry or not hungry. I'm either curious or not curious. And it's a continuum. It ranges. So that's the way that most of the literature describes curiosity. Most of the research, however, treats curiosity like a stable trait. You are either a curious person or you're not a curious person. You're either a specifically curious person or you're a diversive curious person. So they talk about and they research it as a stable state or something that I inherit or something that is inherent within me. And so there's a disconnect here about how the literature talks about creativity and curiosity and how the research studies it. Rarely has curiosity been studied as a state. And one of the things that means is that this state means that I could have more or less curiosity than you, or you could have more or less curiosity than me. And also, I could have more or less curiosity right now than 5 minutes ago or next week, right? And so rarely has it been studied in that way. And so when you take that knowledge and understanding into consideration, it says research does show that the ways someone is presented with an information will impact their level of curiosity. So one of the things we do know from research is if I state something a particular way, you're going to become more curious or you're going to become less curious. So some of the examples that they gave about that are phrases like important to scientific and medical breakthroughs. So if you take this medication, this has been really important medication within scientific and medical breakthroughs. If you say something like that, you're going to catch somebody's attention and be like, do I need to take this medication? Or findings show that 8 out of 10 people are right? That piques your curiosity. Well, what am I a part of the 8 or am I the 2 that don't buy into this? So the way that you present information increases or decreases someone's curiosity. In addition, here's another example. They say, this was very interesting to many other individuals. When I present information in that way, it piques your interest. It piques your curiosity. So again, I think, what are the takeaways? What are the implications for solution-focused brief therapy? This is one of the reasons I would say that we ask questions that involve presuppositions. When we phrase things a certain way, when we're really careful with our language, our clients' curiosity increases and they'll say things like, I've never thought about it like that before. I've never said it like that before. Or, I don't really know. And you can pique their curiosity simply by the language you use, because again, we're talking to somebody who has a context-specific curiosity. So if curiosity increases creativity, and we're trying to ask somebody to create something new, something novel, we want our language to help that endeavor. And so again, I think this emphasizes the real importance of language and why we phrase things the way that we do. So the next thing that they talk about, and this is kind of where they're highlighting a bit of a gap in the literature. They advocate for assessing curiosity through behavior. And they cite a meta-analysis about curiosity. And they found that in that meta-analysis, about 90% of the studies that were included in that meta-analysis used self-report measures. So that in essence, what they were saying is it really depends on the client telling us, this is what's going on for me. And sometimes that introduces bias into research. And so they do talk about, there's a few studies out there that looked at fMRIs or pupil dilation or exploratory eye movement within the studies, where it was based on behavior, what was happening within their brain, what was happening within their eyes, what was happening in the way that they moved. And so there were a few, but that was limited. One of the studies also looked at paying for information. So they were saying, and this is what they were saying is like the future direction of literature about curiosity. And they were saying there's one study out there that said people were given some money and they could pay that money in order to learn something new, to gain some information that they wanted, right? One really easy way to do that is not necessarily with money, but with time. We do this a lot with television. They'll throw out these hooks at the end or right before an ad, right? And they'll say, to see what happened next, tune in. Or on our next episode, this is going to happen. And we pay in order to get that information with our time. We sit there and we wait for that information to come. And so they talk about how if people are willing to pay either with money or with time or with resources in some way, that was consistent with willingness or a desire to obtain information, which is a consistent way to measure curiosity. And so in some sense, again, if we take that into the solution-focused context and we say, are clients willing to pay for a session? Are clients willing to invest time? Do clients do things after the session that show that they're willing to get this new information? They're willing to have this transformation. That's an indication that our work might be beneficial if people continually decide, yeah, I'm willing to, in essence, pay to get this new information. It's paying off. In addition, they looked at kind of studies coming and they said they were looking at specific curiosity versus that diverse curiosity, which we mentioned a little bit before. And they did a study where they asked people to search on Wikipedia. And these people searched for 5 hours on Wikipedia. And what they discovered is that people with specific curiosity, they tended to search tightly related content. So they might move from page to page, but all of those pages were really closely related to each other. Whereas people with diverse curiosity, they had really loose connections, and they would really search big and broad. And again, knowing what kind of curiosity or influencing curiosity in a particular direction might help us build toward our desired outcome, or it may help us detract from that desired outcome. If we can get really specific curiosity built in a session, then perhaps our clients are going to have real clarity, or they're going to have again access to new knowledge, new information about that specific thing. Whereas if we let our clients talk about whatever and kind of move from topic to topic, it may not be so honed, and they may not have new knowledge or new information about what they are specifically hoping to achieve. So again, knowing this idea of specific curiosity versus diverse curiosity can influence how we do our jobs. And then finally, these last bullet points is what they talked about as far as effort task. And again, this requires people to work to get information. This is another way of paying for information. And one of the things that I think here is that there are significant solution-focused implications. Let me just talk about these last two. This measure is a more dynamic and provides a better view than just momentary curiosity. So if people have to work for it, then they're not just curious for a moment, but it lasts longer. And in essence, in therapeutic language, we would say there's long-lasting change. And so we want to require people to work. When people say, I don't know a lot, in essence, they're having to struggle, they're having to work, they're having to pay for this new knowledge. And if they have to pay for it through struggle and hardship and work and effort, the change or the impact is going to be more long-lasting. And again, this tends to be more predictive of diversive curiosity over specific curiosity. So if we can really hone in on a specific thing, if we can really hone in on asking people to work hard, then the lasting change will probably be a result. Then this is kind of where some questions come up. They talk about types of curiosity. There's all these different types of curiosity which are new. And basically what they do is they just kind of throw these out there and they say there's more research that needs to be done in these areas. Epistemic curiosity, right? We talked a little bit about that before, but deprivation sensitivity. If I've been depleted of sensory experiences, does that change my willingness to be curious? Again, it's this state curiosity. If I have a joyful experience, there's a joyful exploration. Does that increase my level of willingness to be curious? They talk about social curiosity and thrill seeking. They talk about, does stress tolerance or the ability to handle distress or anxiety, does that lead to novel experiences? And again, you can kind of hear that in solution-focused conversations. If my client is willing to sit through the stress of these questions and the not knowing and the difficulty of answering, does that lead to new novel experiences? Does someone's innate willingness to be open to new experiences, does that change how they engage? Does that change their level of curiosity? If somebody is prone to be bored, does that change their level of curiosity? And so there's lots of these different concepts that intersect here. And again, there aren't really a lot of answers. I'm just throwing these out to say, this idea of curiosity is vast. And it's something that we probably as solution-focused clinicians need to be thinking about. We need to be saying, am I curious enough? Am I using curiosity within my work? Does it drive the kinds of questions that I'm asking? Am I asking my client to engage in a curious process, which leads to creativity, which could lead to long-lasting change? So again, curiosity and creativity may be options of ways that we can measure therapeutic outcomes. So I think there's some really innovative, creative things, no pun intended here, on what we as solution-focused therapists can do, or how we can consider creativity and curiosity in the work that we do. They finally addressed just a couple of limitations. All of the research that they looked at was correlational research, and most of it was reliant on self-report measures, which just talks to, in essence, the level of sophistication at which the research is available at this point. More research is needed, basically. And they talk about the lack of experimental manipulation evoking the states of curiosity, which we've talked about before. Not considering curiosity as a state that fluctuates, but instead looking at it as a kind of a static quality. And then finally here you get the full reference for this article. And they give lots and lots of resources and references to other creative and curiosity research. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that it stirred some new thoughts for you, and it helped you to kind of begin to get curious as well about your own work. What's working, what isn't working, how does it work? How do I use my language, use my questions in a way that invites my client to become really specifically curious? How do I help my client to move in a direction of lasting change through the use of creativity? I think there's some really innovative things here. So I hope that was helpful to you. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Until next time, go out and be curious about what you're doing and why you're doing it.